pictures behind the numbers that are reported. We felt that our insights of this group that represents three medical charities, Mediglobal and MAPS UK and MSF, are quite important to be shared with policymakers, with member states, and hopefully it will encourage them to incorporate these stories when they deliberate the ceasefire resolutions or resolutions that will be happening in the next few days, and push them to be more proactive in ending this war that created a lot of suffering in Gaza. So that was kind of maybe just an abscess of what happened in the last 2 days. Today, our intention, and I will wait for you for your introduction, is to share some of these stories with you. We'll start with 3 minutes of each one of us that will share what he or she believes the most important thing. Then we'll open it for questions and answers.
Wonderful. I mean, I think that we're still waiting for Dr. Thayer. When he shows up, he can simply enter. I think we should go ahead and, just by way of introduction, I'm Peter Duffy from Crisis Action. Our organization works without media profile. We uplift the voices of our partners, as we see here. And so, no need to quote our organization. These are the sources for this story. As Dr. Zahir says, we'll turn to each of the doctors in turn to introduce themselves, introduce their experience and knowledge and firsthand testimony from Gaza, and also what they've been sharing with UN member states and UN officials while they've been here. So without further ado, I'll turn to whoever wishes to go first.
I think you're our guest.
Okay. Thank you very much. So my name's Nick Maynard. I'm a surgeon from Oxford in the United Kingdom. I'm a cancer surgeon there, and I've been going out to Gaza for the best part of 15 years to teach, but also in recent years to teach surgery, to carry out surgery and help develop their cancer surgery services. And so I know Gaza very well, and I thought I'd be prepared for what I was going to see when I went out to Gaza as part of the first UK emergency medical team over Christmas and New Year, just gone. And I spent 2 weeks at al-Aqsa hospital, and I think it's fair to say I wasn't remotely prepared for what I saw. I saw the most appalling atrocities, and I saw things that I never would have expected to have seen in any healthcare setting. I'm going to talk about what I've expressed the real urgent need for a ceasefire to prevent ongoing humanitarian catastrophe, and I wanted to dispel some of the narratives which we hear about coming from the Israelis, but also from some of the media as well, about the targeted bombing, the fact that they claim they're only targeting Hamas militants and that they are protecting civilians. And I can certainly bear witness, as my colleagues can, and as indeed any medic who's been on the ground in Gaza in recent months can dispel that notion with absolute certainty. There is mass, indiscriminate bombing, killing many, many thousands of civilians, and a very clear targeting of healthcare facilities and healthcare workers, and deliberately destroying the infrastructure of all the hospitals to make it almost impossible to provide anything resembling normal healthcare to the population of Gaza. The only way to prevent that ongoing humanitarian catastrophe is an immediate and permanent ceasefire. And I guess I'd like to just finish by describing an experience I had in Gaza only a few months before October the 7th, when I was there in May of last year. And I'd gone out there to carry out a week of cancer surgery, and on the second night I was there was a sustained bombardment. And you may remember it was the last big bombardment before October the 7th. And Gaza was locked down, the borders were closed. We weren't allowed to leave the hotel until we were eventually evacuated by the UN. But I witnessed during those 4 days non-stop bombing from the Israeli Defence Force and non-stop rockets going over from Islamic Jihad into Israel. And we saw firsthand the incredibly targeted, sophisticated targeting the Israeli Defence Force were capable of in taking out and killing the Islamic Jihad leaders by targeting single rooms, single floors of buildings with very little collateral damage. So we know they can do that, and their claim that they are targeting Hamas militants now, in the light of what I saw then, has no credibility at all. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon one more time, and I would like to focus my words on the people behind the numbers. Sometimes and I'm sure that you are receiving all kinds of reports about the number of children who were killed, 13,000 or so or more, which means 1 out of 100 children in Gaza has been killed, and this is an astronomical number. The equivalent of that in the United States would be 500,000 children being killed. So I think we sometimes look at these numbers in absolute. We do not put them in the context. 70,000 people who were injured, half of them have moderate to severe injuries. That means they will have some type of disability for the rest of their lives. 4% of the population either killed or injured. 85% of the people are displaced. So the purpose of our meetings today with member states and tomorrow and day after and Friday with the administration is to instill sense of urgency about the situation, because I think Gaza is reaching a tipping point. Gaza is reaching a tipping point where the shortage of food and water and fuel and medicine and medical supplies, and also the collapse of the healthcare system, is causing accelerated death among people who are innocent, and also people who are injured and having surgeries, having more complications. And that is leading to what we are right now witnessing in terms of the famine, increasing rate of malnutrition, food insecurity that is rising, catastrophic in half of the population, and more death related to non-communicable diseases because of the shortage of medicine and dialysis and chemotherapy for cancer patients. So these numbers will continue to accelerate even if the war stops right now. And if there's continuation of the status quo or acceleration with the Rafah offensive, then you will have more injuries and death among the population. Gaza is at this stage unlivable because of the consistent destruction of the infrastructure that are required for life. So I want to focus on the people. This is Hiyam Abu Khadr. She's 7 years old. She is one of the victims of the war in Gaza. A bomb hit her family home, so her father and brother were killed, and her mother also was injured and she had burns, and she sustained third-degree burns on 40% of her body. She was treated by one of our volunteers, Dr. Vanita Gupta, who is critical care specialist from New York, in the European hospital in Deir al-Balah. And Dr. Gupta took some videos of her, and you can see her face in the videos and also in this picture. And if you want to define post-traumatic stress disorder, this is what post-traumatic stress disorder looks like in the face of a child who's 7 years old. She was supposed to be evacuated to Egypt, and she waited for weeks before she was eventually evacuated, and she died 2 days after evacuation because it was too late. 8,000 patients are supposed to be evacuated from Gaza to neighboring states who wanted to treat them, but for some reason they are delayed. Only 10% of them have been evacuated so far. This is Muhammad Khalil Abu Shahli. He's 12 years old. He was displaced with his family from Eastern Khan Yunis to area around Nasser Hospital because thousands of people believe that hospitals are safe. It turned out that hospitals are not safe in Gaza. We've seen that in Syria, we've seen that in Ukraine and other places, but in Gaza it's worse because the population are concentrated in very small area that is shrinking, keeps shrinking. That means everyone is close to the fighting and the bombs and the missiles, and that's why we have this high number of injuries and death among civilians, especially women and children. Muhammad Khalil Abu Shahra was brought to Nasser Hospital after a missile hit a distribution center. There were 32 injured people who were brought all together to the emergency room. 7 of them were dead on arrival. There was complete chaos in the emergency room. Most patients were treated in the floor of the emergency room. Dr. Taher Ahmed put a breathing tube in the mouth of Muhammad because he was not breathing, and put him on life support. And then he had surgery for shrapnels in the abdomen. And then he went to the intensive care unit. I took care of him in the intensive care unit next day. He never woke up. He was pronounced dead, and we were not able to communicate with his family, and we sent him to the morgue. And I made a copy of his death certificate because I want to take a proof. Sometimes the media asked me before the Gaza crisis, do you believe the numbers of death? I believe the numbers of death. This is one of them. I think this is an underestimate of the real numbers of death. Today there was a report about 5,000 or so people who disappeared in Gaza. Most of them are still under the rubble. But this is one story of the 13,000 children who were killed in Gaza.